Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be delving into the world of Jonathan Paaso and his latest single, Anhelo.
Yeah, Paaso's music is so interesting. He's this Finnish singer-songwriter.
From Finland.
Yeah, from Finland. And he's got this really cool blend of influences. Like you hear bits of 70s pop rock in there, some gospel elements, and then he kind of throws in this modern twist.
Oh yeah. Like when I first listened to his music, I definitely got like Johnny Cash vibes.
Right.
That sort of storytelling aspect.
Yeah.
But then there's also that like energy of Jerry Lee Lewis too. But it's all like wrapped up in this really soulful sound that it's kind of hard to describe.
Yeah, and it's funny because you don't often think of Finland as being a hub for gospel music.
Right. It's not exactly the first place that comes to mind.
But Paaso somehow manages to bring all these seemingly different influences together and creates this sound that feels familiar, Like you've heard it before, but also totally fresh and new at the same time.
Okay, now I'm even more intrigued. So we've got this Finnish artist blending 70s pop rock with gospel and a modern twist.
Exactly.
And now we're throwing in another layer with this latest single, Anhelo, because it features a collaboration with Paraguayan vocalist Gabriela Martinez.
And that's where things get really fascinating. This cross-cultural collaboration, I think, adds a whole other dimension to Paaso's music. And it really highlights how music can kind of break down these geographical boundaries and create connections. Because when you listen to Anhelo, you can just feel the synergy between these two artists, even though they come from completely different musical backgrounds and parts of the world.
It's like music becomes this universal language.
Exactly.
Okay, well, we're definitely going to have to dive into the song itself. But before we get to that, I'm curious to learn more about Paaso's musical journey, Like what led him to this unique sound?
Well, one thing that really stood out to me from the stuff I read is that Paaso's music is super personal. It's not just about writing catchy tunes. It's about expressing something deeper, reflecting on his own life experiences.
So it's like his music is a window into his soul.
Yeah. And it's clear from what we know that he's faced some challenges in his life. There have been periods of hardship, self-discovery, all that stuff. But instead of shying away from those things, he uses music as a way to process and explore those experiences.
So, I mean, it sounds like he's not just drawing from those musical influences of like Johnny Cash and Jerry Lee Lewis, but also tapping into something deeper, something more personal.
Exactly. It's like he's taking those classic storytelling elements from 70s pop rock, infusing them with the raw emotionality of gospel, and then adding his own personal experiences to the mix.
And that makes his music so relatable, right?
Totally. Because ultimately, gospel music is all about those universal themes of faith, hope, transformation, and you can hear echoes of that in Paaso's work as well. It's about connecting with something bigger than ourselves, something that resonates with the human experience.
That's what makes his music so captivating, at least for me. It's like you're listening to someone bare their soul. They're not afraid to show those vulnerabilities and those moments of struggle and doubt. And I think that allows the listener to connect to those emotions in themselves.
You hit the nail on the head. That vulnerability is what gives his music staying power. It's not just surface level entertainment. It makes you think. It makes you feel.
And that's what makes it special. Okay, I think we set the stage pretty well, ready to finally dive into Anhelo.
Let's do it. I think you're going to love this.
So from the sources we have, the song has been described as mesmerizing.
Oh, it is.
And reviewers have been raving about the synergy between the vocals and the instrumentation.
Yeah, and for good reason. From the very first note, Anhelo just grabs your attention. It opens with this gentle piano melody, really simple, but it immediately sets this contemplative mood.
It's like you're being invited into this emotional journey right from the start.
Yes.
It's not like your typical pop song that just explodes out of the gate.
It's much more subtle than that. Paaso really understands the power of pacing. He lets the music breathe, lets the emotions build slowly, and draws the listener in gradually. And as the piano melody unfolds, you start hearing these ambient sounds kind of weaving their way into the mix. They create this atmosphere, this sense of space, and it just adds another layer of depth.
Okay, wait, ambient sounds. What do you mean by that? I'm picturing like birds chirping or something.
No, not quite. I'm talking about subtle atmospheric textures that create a specific mood or feeling.
Okay, so it's more like setting the scene sonically.
Yeah, exactly. It's like using sound to paint a picture.
I'm already picturing the music video for Anhelo.
Yeah.
Like these sweeping cinematic shots to match the music.
Oh yeah, I can totally see it.
It would be beautiful. Okay, so we've got this captivating piano melody, these ambient sounds, and then what?
Then as the song moves forward, we transition to the verses, and that's where Paaso and Martinez's voices take center stage.
And from what I've read, their vocal styles are quite different.
Very different.
But they somehow blend perfectly.
It's really interesting how they create this contrast. Like you have Martinez with this raw, emotive delivery that really captures the longing and desire in the lyrics. And then Paaso's voice comes in and it's so graceful, almost ethereal. It's the perfect counterpoint.
And it creates this breathtaking duet.
Oh, it does. And the way they go back and forth between these softer, almost vulnerable verses and these powerful, soaring choruses, it's just masterful.
Oh, man. And those transition, the dynamic shifts. It keeps you on the edge of your seat because the song's not just this like flat, linear experience.
It's like an emotional roller coaster reflecting that feeling of longing.
Okay, we've got to talk about that chorus because that's where the song just explodes, right?
Oh, yeah. When their voices come together in unison, it gives me chills every time.
It's like all that buildup, all that anticipation from the beginning just culminates in this moment of pure passion and intensity.
And the lyrics in the chorus are just as powerful as the vocals.
Yeah.
They're all about longing for something more, for connection and fulfillment. And I think that's something everyone can relate to. It doesn't matter what language you speak, what your background is. We all experience that feeling of wanting, of searching.
And it's interesting you bring up language because the fact that the song is sung in both Finnish and Spanish adds another layer to that whole idea of connection, doesn't it?
It does, and it brings us back to that theme we talked about earlier, how music bridges those cultural gaps and creates shared experiences. Anhelo is a perfect example of that.
It really is. Okay, but before we get too deep into that discussion, let's break down the instrumentation a bit more. We've talked about the piano and the ambient sounds. What else is going on?
Well, you've got the piano as the foundation. And then Paaso adds these strings that bring in this element of drama and melancholy.
Oh, I can hear that.
Then there's some percussion to give the song momentum and drive the rhythm forward. And then he throws in these really subtle electronic elements that kind of weave in and out. It gives the song a more modern edge.
Wow. So there's a lot going on there.
There is.
But somehow it all works. Like all the reviewers keep saying that nothing feels overwhelming or out of place.
And that's a testament to Paaso's talent as a composer. He really understands balance, you know? He's created this sonic landscape that's rich and detailed, but he gives each element space to shine without overshadowing anything else. It's not just a wall of sound.
Okay, so you've explained the vocals, you've broken down the instrumentation, but now I'm really curious to hear how you think those two elements work together in Anhelo.
To me, it's like they're having this ongoing conversation, you know, like a call and response between the instruments and the vocals. It's almost like the instruments create this beautifully textured backdrop for the vocals to shine against. And the vocals, in turn, kind of draw out all the nuances and subtleties in the instrumentation. It's this symbiotic relationship that just elevates the entire listening experience.
It's like they're working together to tell a story.
They are.
Yeah, it's like they're breathing together. The vocals and the instruments ebbing and flowing to create this really immersive sonic world. It's more than just a song, it's an experience.
I love that. You said it perfectly. And what makes Anhelo even more special is the production quality. It's just top notch. Like the way they've captured the sound, how clear everything is. You can hear every single element. And it all has its own space to breathe.
Yeah, I was reading some reviews earlier, and they all mentioned the production. They were using words like top-notch and saying that every element has its own space to shine.
Exactly. And you can tell that a lot of care and attention went into making the song. It's not just about throwing a bunch of sounds together and hoping for the best. They really thought about how to create a listening experience that would draw people in and take them on this journey.
Speaking of journeys, let's shift gears for a second and talk about Paaso himself. The sources mention that his music is really personal and often reflects his own experiences with, hardship and self-discovery.
Yeah, it's like he's not just trying to write hits.
Right.
For Paaso, music is a way to express himself, to process those life experiences, and to connect with others who might be going through similar things.
It's almost like he's saying, hey, I've been there too. I felt the pain, the doubt, the longing. But it's also about finding strength and resilience along the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that willingness to be vulnerable, to share his own struggles through his music, that's what makes him so relatable. It's like he's inviting us into his world, letting us see the person behind the music.
And that's so refreshing, don't you think? Especially these days when everything feels so filtered and perfect on social media and stuff. It's really cool to see an artist who's just being real. Showing their flaws and imperfections.
Yeah, totally agree. And that authenticity really shines through in Anhelo. It's a song that manages to be both deeply personal and super relatable at the same time.
Because at the end of the day, we all have those experiences of longing, of searching, of hoping for something more.
We do.
And it's cool that Paaso's exploring that in his music.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've touched on the emotional depth, the cross-cultural collaboration, the amazing production, but I think it's time to go back to the music itself for a minute.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's rewind and walk through Anhelo moment by moment, kind of paint a picture for our listeners. So, as we mentioned earlier, it starts with that captivating piano melody. Super simple, but so effective. It draws you in and sets this contemplative mood.
Like an invitation to enter a different world. A world of emotion and introspection.
Exactly. And then as that piano melody unfolds, you start hearing those ambient sounds we talked about, those little textures that add atmosphere and a sense of anticipation.
Like layers of color and depth on a canvas.
Yes. And then, just when you're settling into that soundscape, Gabriela Martinez's voice comes in.
And it's incredible.
Yeah.
There's just so much raw emotion in her delivery.
That goes straight to your heart. And she really captures those themes of longing and desire that we've been talking about. Like, her voice conveys both vulnerability and strength at the same time.
It's powerful.
It is. And then Jonathan Paaso's voice joins in, and oh man, it's magical.
They sound amazing together.
Their voices just complement each other so well. You have that raw emotive quality from Martinez, and then Paaso's voice, which is so graceful and almost ethereal. It creates this stunning contrast.
And it's not just their individual voices, it's how they blend together. Those harmonies, like their voices are intertwined, telling a story together.
Exactly. It's beautiful. And in the verses, their voices are soft, almost vulnerable, like they're drawing you in. But then the chorus hits and their voices just soar, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Reflecting the intensity of the lyrics.
That shift in dynamics is so cool, so captivating. You're literally on this emotional roller coaster, going from these moments of quiet intensity to these big, powerful bursts of emotion.
I love it. And speaking of the chorus, we have to talk about those lyrics. They're more than just catchy phrases. They're really poetic. They talk about that universal longing, searching for something more in life.
Something we all experience, right?
We do. No matter who we are, where we're from, we all have that desire for something more.
And the fact that they sing the chorus in both Finnish and Spanish, I mean,
Yeah.
that just adds another layer to the whole idea. It's like they're saying this feeling of longing transcends language and culture.
Yes, exactly. Okay, now we can't talk about Anhelo without mentioning the instrumentation.
It's amazing.
It's not just background music. It plays a really important role in creating the song's emotional landscape. It's like each instrument has its own voice, adding to the richness and complexity of the soundscape.
So we've got the piano, which sets the foundation for the song, but then there are those strings that add a layer of drama and melancholy.
Right, and then the percussion that drives the rhythm forward gives the song momentum.
And we can't forget those subtle electronic elements that give the song a more modern edge.
Yes, so there's a lot going on.
There is, but it all works together so well. Nothing feels overwhelming.
And that speaks to the skill of both the composer and the producer. They've created this soundscape that's so rich and detailed, but it's also really accessible. It's the perfect complement to the vocals.
It all comes together to create this immersive listening experience that you just get lost in.
Yes. When you listen to Anhelo, it's like stepping into this whole other world, a world of emotion, of longing, of searching, and hopefully finding.
I know what you mean.
It's a powerful song, and it stays with you long after the last note fades away.
It really does. It just shows you the power of music to move us, to inspire us, to connect us.
Anhelo is a masterpiece. And Jonathan Paaso, he's a true artist.
Couldn't agree more. And to think this is just one song in his discography, I can't wait to explore more of his music.
Oh, yeah. Me too. But before we get lost in a Jonathan Paaso rabbit hole, let's take a moment to thank our sponsor.
Oh, yeah, definitely. A huge thank you to Dulaxi for supporting this deep dive. We couldn't do it without you.
Thank you, Dulaxi.
All right, so before we wrap up our exploration of Anhelo, I think it's important to step back for a minute and look at the bigger picture. This song isn't just a standalone piece. It's part of a larger conversation about the role of music in our lives, right?
Yes. Anhelo makes us think about a lot of important things, like the power of vulnerability, the beauty of collaboration, and how art can transcend boundaries.
It also makes us think about how music can connect people from different cultures and backgrounds. Like it bridges those gaps and creates shared experiences. So as we move towards the final part of our deep dive, keep those thoughts in mind. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From Paaso's unique blend of influences to that incredible collaboration on Anhelo. And of course, we talked about the song's emotional depth.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to trace those threads, to see how his personal journey has shaped his music and how it all comes together in a song like Anhelo.
It's amazing how he blends those cross-cultural elements and those universal themes of longing.
And how he manages to connect with listeners all over the world.
Which brings us back to that question we posed in the very beginning of this deep dive. How does music bridge cultural gaps and create those shared experiences?
Right, and I think Anhelo gives us a pretty powerful answer. We have this Finnish artist collaborating with a vocalist from Paraguay, and they've created something that speaks to people all over the world, regardless of their background.
It's proof that music is a universal language.
Exactly, a language that can transcend borders and cultures.
It's like music taps into something deeper, something we all share as humans.
It does. It's about connecting with those raw emotions, those universal experiences of longing, hope, and searching for meaning. And that's what Anhelo does so beautifully. The music, the lyrics, the way it blends those different styles and languages, it all comes together to create this powerful, moving experience.
And it's fascinating to think that it all stemmed from Paaso's own personal journey.
Right. His experiences with hardship, self-discovery, all of that. It's like he took those struggles and turned them into something beautiful and meaningful that can resonate with people on a global scale.
Which is the power of art, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To take those personal experiences and make them universal.
And I think that's one of the things that makes Anhelo so special. You can feel Paaso's story in the music, but you can also connect with it on your own terms,
Yeah. It's open to interpretation. It can mean something different to everyone who hears it, and yet it still has this power to unite us. Just think about it. People all over the world are listening to Anhelo. They each have their own unique story, their own interpretation, but they're all sharing in this collective experience.
It's amazing how music can do that.
Yep.
Break down those barriers and create a sense of shared humanity, especially in a world that can feel so divided at times.
It is, and it's definitely something to think about. How often do we come across something that can resonate with people from so many different backgrounds?
Not very often, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I think Anhelo is a good reminder that despite our differences, we all have more in common than we might realize.
So to our listeners, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Jonathan Paaso and Anhelo, we want to leave you with this question. How has music bridged gaps in your own life?
Think about the songs or artists that have helped you connect with others, maybe even people from different cultures.
And if you haven't listened to Anhelo yet, we highly recommend checking it out.
Oh, yeah. You have to. It's a beautiful and moving song that will stay with you long after the last note. It's a testament to the power of music to heal, to connect, and to inspire.
And a huge thank you to Dulaxi for sponsoring this deep dive. We couldn't have done it without you.
Thank you, Dulaxi.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.